I know you said you were one of the, like only a handful
Yeah.
of classes into the selection. I imagine that the selection process, did it evolve as you were there, or did it kind of seem like they already had it down and you guys kept that same flow the
Yeah,
entire
it was
time?
kind of interesting, because they were just moving the task organization around so much. I didn't like, again, these were kind of rumor mills. I mean, it was like we were trying to kind of do our own thing as Marines, and there were already a couple models out there with what the SEALs were doing or the SF community was doing. And,
Mm-hmm.
we were trying to, we had MSOAG, and then we turned that into third MSOB and all that stuff. And so I don't know if the training was really kind of set the way you would look at, say, like School of Infantry East and School of Infantry West. They are teaching the same exact
Mm-hmm.
like period of instructions. And really, I think with the emergence of the individual training course, where getting guys
Mm-hmm.
coming from selection, didn't matter where you came from, you're all going through the same kind of cookie cutter individual training course for 6 months. I think once that kind of had probably had a couple of cycles, you really started seeing a difference of things being a little bit more uniformed. And really, in the beginning, I mean, I'll be biased. Probably First Raider Battalion was probably the more kinetic battalion, just due to where it was located in the Helmand Province, and you had a lot
Mm-hmm.
of interesting TTPs that were kind of emerging from people during their workups. And I think once some of the guys from First Battalion, and much to a lot of their chagrin, like, they just didn't want to leave California. But when they got orders over to the Marine Special Operations Schoolhouse, um, you really saw a difference in the type of new raiders that were coming out of that, especially with their shooting abilities. I mean, guys would come up and show up
Yeah.
for when we're doing more of our weapons and tactics, which includes our CQB package, and you would just see the guys coming out of ITC right there, just with the regular, guys who've had multiple deployments as Raiders. So that's when I really started seeing like things were getting a little bit more uniformed, and everyone was kind of doing the same, more or less, tactics, techniques, and procedures, and everyone was kind of talking on the same sheet, which is great because then you started having guys, as we started growing up, guys were moving to second battalion or moving to third battalion or going to first battalion, and it really was interchangeable. And then, I think with the more kind of focusing on, all right, let's start putting each of these battalions more region specific once Afghanistan started calming down. I think you started seeing some increased abilities with languages and things like that, where people could spend a little bit more time, kind of becoming like that area duty expert and being able to go out and do
Mm-hmm.
billets with their respective Special Operations Command, with their Theater Special Operation Command posts. So, you send guys out to Special Operations Command Pacific or Special Operations Command Africa or SOC Cent. And these individuals really became kind of like the duty experts of that region, which, in particular, you want. You can't have a jack of all trades at some of that parts because just different regions in the world are different. But you really, like, I think
Mm-hmm.
you started seeing that kind of come to more fruition. And, I talked to guys, there's not many guys that I was with who are still in, but a lot of them have said, like, you're just seeing the training evolve, and you're really seeing guys. There might have been kind of a lull from what I understood, in terms of when like Afghanistan kind of started turning down, and then it seemed to pick up where, a good buddy of mine, Brian Jacklin, who retired as a Master Sergeant, Navy Cross recipient. Uh, yeah, he was a
Oh
company
wow.
operations officer, and he was telling me, yeah, like just how good the unit was looking. He's like, listen, these my guys, they look like 2012, Hellman guys. He's like, I would take them anywhere in the world. So it was really good to hear, and it should be. I mean, they should be outpacing what the guys were doing in 2011 in 2021. I mean, we should be getting better and more evolved. I think the one downside is, and it's kind of a oxymoron. Uh, I think a lot of guys, they get into the Raiders to go do the highly kinetic operations, and they're just not really happening as they once were. I'm things in the
Mm-hmm.
Middle East, and with Iraq and everything still a little bit hot there, but not like it once was. And I think that's one of the problems we're having with retainment is guys kind of go in there for 4 years and they do a deployment to Guam and go do a couple. J sets or pat missions or whatever they may be, and it's just kind of things where they're like, that just wasn't really, what I signed up for.
Yeah, yeah. So well, your guys are getting that. They set up like a base level of training, and everyone's getting that really, all the like basic skills that you're going to need to be successful as a raider. And then they're going down to their companies and getting that company level like TTPs and stuff. Is that what you're saying? And do you think there's a lot of difference between like the TTPs between how the different companies operate?
I don't really think as much, trying to think. I mean, when we were going through what we had to do, it was kind of simple. I mean, you had two battalions, 1st and 2nd Battalion were married to Afghanistan.
Mm-hmm.
So really 1st Battalion was running in Helmand, and then 2nd Battalion was in Herat and Farah provinces. And, what we would do at the end of the day, we had a final exercise called a Raven, which was, we'd go out, we'd do team training. I'll take a step back. We'd start off weapons and tactics, and that was the whole company together. For me, for example, at Camp Pendleton, we're going through our shooting packages, we're getting everything like that, and that's the entire company going through.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, you break off and do your team training. And part of our, medals we got to achieve is being able to deploy and redeploy as a Marine Special Operations team. So we usually go off site. For example, I took my team around New Mexico and different areas like that to do some training. And the other 2 teams went off to different parts of the country as well. And then we would come back and we would do a company training or exercise at Fort Irwin. And we would do that for about 3 weeks. And then next thing you know, the whole head shed and everyone came out from the East Coast, from the G7 department, which is our training department. And they would run us through a Raven exercise where that was our final exercise. And if we do well, you can deploy. And if you don't do so well, which has happened, you'll witness a French Revolution, and you see a lot of head shed getting their heads chopped off and new people coming in. And it was kind of simple for 1st and 2nd Battalion because it was just always Afghan scenarios. Okay, you guys are doing village stability platforms. You guys are doing the commando mission, and away you guys go. And with 3rd Battalion, that was kind of more spread out, doing things in Africa and then doing things out in the Pacific. They were kind of floating a little bit, I was in terms of like a Raven exercise. But I think once the Afghanistan thing slowed down and they really started pushing kind of a more, everyone kind of the same type of training, I think it really kind of picked up. And, from my understanding, when they do these Raven exercises, I mean, they're going to tailor it to what theater they're going to go to. And, it's turned out some pretty good successes. And it's just like anything. I mean, I know there was a ton of frustration in the beginning, but, you have people growing up in billets. I mean, now we have, on the officer side, you had guys who were team commanders are now regimental commanders.
Mm-hmm.
You got guys who were, just slack guys in a team, and now they're up in, as a master sergeant, doing some things, and they can kind of really have that influence and really growing up in maybe the special operations community. And you're just seeing things getting a little more streamlined. It is an interesting move that they made where they took 1st Battalion and they moved it to the East Coast. I greatly disagree with that, but
there was a lot of pushback. There was I was reading some stuff online about how there could have been some kind of